Hey there, and welcome to Haunted Halls. I'm your guide through the shadows, bringing you chilling stories that will keep you up at night. Before we begin, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more nightmares. Let me know where you're watching from and what time it is. I'd love to know who else is awake with me. Now, let's step into the darkness. I don't know how to explain this in a way that makes sense. Hell, maybe it doesn't make sense. But it happened, and I can't shake the feeling that it's still happening in some way, just out of sight. Last fall, I took a job that required a lot of driving. Mostly small towns, way off the highways, places that barely show up on a map. I did not mind, kind of liked it, actually. There's something peaceful about those empty roads. Long stretches of nothing but trees and fields. It felt like a break from everything. Then I found Black Hollow. It wasn't where it should have been. I was trying to get to a place called Redfield, following my GPS, when I hit a detour sign that looked new. Bright orange, reflective. No other signs, no indication of road work, just a single arrow pointing down a side road I did not remember seeing on the map. I figured whatever, I'll just go around. The road was narrow, cracked, with trees pressing in on both sides. I thought about turning around, but then I saw the sign. Welcome to Black Hollow. Population 362. That was the first thing that felt off. The sign looked old, weathered wood, peeling paint, but the number had been changed recently. The 2 was a brighter white than the rest. I don't know why that unsettled me. It just did. I drove in anyway. Small town, like 100 others I'd passed through. Old brick buildings, a diner, a gas station with a single pump. But something about it felt still. No movement, no people, no cars parked along the street. It wasn't late, maybe 3 in the afternoon, but it felt like a place that had shut down a long time ago. Then I saw a man standing on the sidewalk. Just standing. No phone, no bag, not even looking around. He was facing the street, hands at his sides, eyes straight ahead, like he was waiting for something. I slowed down. He didn't move. Didn't even seem to notice my car passing. And then up ahead, I saw another person. A woman this time. Same posture. Same blank stare. I told myself they were waiting for a parade or a funeral procession or something. But there was no decoration, no sign of an event. Just those silent figures, standing still. I kept driving. At the end of the main street, there was a gas station. I pulled in, partly to check my GPS, partly because I wanted to see if I could talk to someone, get a sense of the place. The moment I opened my door, I heard it. A dog barking. Sharp, frantic, but I couldn't see it. The sound was coming from somewhere distant, echoing off the buildings. Then another joined in. Then another. I walked to the station's door, but before I could push it open, I saw the cashier inside. He was standing behind the counter, perfectly still, eyes locked on something outside. His lips were moving like he was talking, but I couldn't hear anything. I didn't go inside. I don't know why, but I just didn't. When I turned back to my car, I noticed something else. The man I'd seen on the sidewalk earlier, he had moved. Now he was 2 buildings closer. Same stance, same blank stare. But he had definitely moved. I got in my car and left. I didn't look at the people on the street as I drove past. I just kept my eyes on the road. My heart was pounding, and I didn't even know why. When I passed the "Welcome to Black Hollow" sign again, I swear to God, the number had changed. Population 363. I didn't stop. I didn't take a picture. I just drove until I hit a town with people who moved, who talked, who looked alive. I sat in a diner for an hour, just listening to the sound of normal conversation. just watching people go about their day. I tried looking up Black Hollow later. It's not on any map. There's no record of it. As far as I can tell, it doesn't exist. But I know what I saw. And sometimes when I'm in a new town, I'll catch sight of someone standing too still on a sidewalk, staring straight ahead. And for just a second, I wonder, did they come from there? I should have never taken that detour. The highway was choked with traffic, stretching into a standstill beneath a sweltering afternoon sun. My GPS suggested an alternate route. Barely a flicker on the map. A winding back road slicing through the countryside. It promised to shave an hour off my drive. The name of the town I'd be passing through was one I didn't recognize. I took the turn without hesitation. At first, it was peaceful. Fields rolled out endlessly, dotted with barns and the occasional crooked fence. Then, as I neared the town, something shifted. The trees lining the road grew gnarled, their branches clawing at the sky like skeletal fingers. The air seemed denser, muffling sound in a way I couldn't quite place. My tires hummed over cracked pavement, the road narrowing as the town's first buildings appeared. It looked untouched, yet abandoned. The streets were empty, the houses eerily uniform. Two-story structures with steep gabled roofs and dark shuttered windows. An old-fashioned general store stood at the corner, its painted sign faded to near illegibility. There were cars parked neatly along the curbs, but no movement, no people. I slowed to a crawl, glancing at my phone. No service. A flicker of movement caught my eye, a curtain being drawn shut in an upstairs window. My chest tightened. Someone was here. But where? A gas station loomed ahead, a relic from another decade with rusted pumps and a cracked, dust-coated window. I pulled in, stepping out into the suffocating silence. The door creaked as I pushed inside. The air smelled of something stale, something left too long in the heat. Shelves were stocked, but coated in dust. The old cash register sat expectantly on the counter. I rapped my knuckles against it, listening to the sound vanish into the emptiness. Hello? My voice felt thin, swallowed by the silence. No answer. Then a shuffle. A figure emerged from the back. A man, gaunt and hollow-eyed, his uniform stiff with age, his gaze fixed on me, unreadable. Need gas, I managed, my voice cracking. He nodded once, slow, before moving behind the counter. I fished for my wallet, but he wasn't looking at me anymore. His gaze was locked on something behind me. I turned. Through the grimy window, a group of people now stood on the opposite sidewalk, facing the station. Their clothes were out of time, buttoned-up dresses, high-waisted trousers. Their faces were pale, indistinct in the dimming light. My stomach dropped. The man behind the counter let out a breath. You should go. My mouth was dry. What is this place? His fingers tightened around the edge of the counter. A mistake, he said. A deep, aching pressure filled my head. The group outside hadn't moved, hadn't blinked, but they had grown in number. I backed toward the door. Forget the gas. The man's jaw clenched, but he said nothing. Just as I reached for the handle, the fluorescent lights overhead flickered and died. Darkness swallowed the store. I bolted outside. The figures were closer now, their eyes locked onto me. My car door wrenched open, my breath coming in short, panicked bursts. I turned the key. The engine groaned but refused to start. In the rearview mirror, the figures stood motionless, their faces clearer now, familiar. I knew them. But that wasn't possible. My mother, my childhood best friend, a teacher I'd barely remembered. All of them. Staring. The gas station door creaked behind me. I knew, without looking, that the man had stepped outside, that he was standing with them now. My heart pounded. The air inside the car grew thick, suffocating. My head spun. Then the engine roared to life. I tore out of the lot, tires screeching. The road unraveled ahead, endless, shifting. I drove blindly, praying for an exit, for a sign, for anything. But the town stretched on, repeating itself in an impossible loop. The gas station, the shuttered houses, the silent figures, waiting. My headlights flickered. The dashboard clock blinked erratically before settling on a time that made my blood run cold. The exact moment I had taken the detour. I wasn't lost. At least, I didn't think I was. I had been driving through Colorado's back roads on my way home from a weekend trip when a detour sign pushed me off my route. It was late afternoon, the sky bruised with oncoming dusk, and my gas gauge dipped lower than I liked. So, when I saw a faded green sign reading "Welcome to Ashbrook," I figured I'd stop. Ashbrook wasn't on my map, but it had a post office, a general store, and a gas station, the kind with a rusted-out pump and a single flickering light. The streets were eerily empty, save for a few old cars parked in front of buildings that looked like they hadn't seen business in decades. The houses, what little I could see of them, stood back from the road, windows dark. A woman stood behind the counter in the general store, absently flipping through a newspaper that looked yellowed with age. She barely glanced up as I approached. "Do you have a restroom?" I asked. She looked at me for a long time, her fingers pausing on a page. Then, without a word, she turned and pointed toward the back. The restroom door groaned on its hinges. Inside, a dim light buzzed against the cracked mirror, and a lingering scent of mildew clung to the air. As I washed my hands, something caught my eye. News clippings tacked to the wall above the sink. They were brittle, curling at the edges, but one headline sent a ripple of unease through me. "Mysterious fire claims entire town of Ashbrook. No survivors." The date was from 30 years ago. Below the article was a grainy black and white photo of a smoldering town. The general store, the gas station, the same buildings I had just seen outside. A cold shiver worked down my spine. I pushed out of the bathroom, almost expecting the store to be different when I stepped back in. But the woman was still there, still flipping through her ancient newspaper. I cleared my throat. "That article in the bathroom, is that about here?" She looked up, her expression unreadable. Then she said something that made my stomach drop. "What bathroom?" I left, quickly. Outside, the town felt off. The colors muted, the air thick like the pressure before a storm. I climbed into my car, started the engine, and drove toward the highway. But the road twisted in ways I didn't recognize. I should have been heading north, but somehow I kept looping past the same buildings, the same cracked sidewalk, the same green sign. "Welcome to Ashbrook." My pulse pounded in my ears. I turned down another street, only to find myself passing the general store again. This time the woman stood in the doorway, watching me. My hands clenched the wheel. I didn't stop. I just kept driving, taking random turns, ignoring the rising nausea in my gut. Then finally, I saw it. A break in the buildings, the road stretching into open fields beyond. My breath hitched. I gunned the gas, tearing toward the horizon, and slammed the brakes, because right in front of me, barely illuminated by my headlights, stood that same damn sign. "Welcome to Ashbrook." Something moved in my rearview mirror. I didn't want to look, but I did. The woman stood in the middle of the road behind me, newspaper still in her hands. Only now she wasn't alone. Figures gathered in the shadows. Dozens of them, faces indistinct in the dim glow. Just standing, just watching. The engine shuddered, the radio crackling with faint, unintelligible whispers. The air inside the car felt wrong, thick and humming, like something was pressing in from all sides. And then the streetlights flickered out. The next morning, a passing motorist reported an abandoned car just outside of Ashbrook city limits. The engine was running. The driver's door hung open, but no one was inside.